This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
Okay, welcome in everybody. An emergency episode of the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with, of course, Greg Bedard, and I am John Zannis, pinch hitting for Nick Cattles. Greg and Nick did a show earlier today. Never got a chance to put it out there because so much of the conversation centered around who is going to be the Patriots offensive coordinator. And as it turns out, we have that answer. It is Josh McDaniels. The news breaking around 6 p.m. on Tuesday. This is kind of where it was headed. We'll get Greg's reaction, of course, to that. Talk a little bit about what's next with the staff, the rest of the offensive staff, potentially a favorite emerging for the defensive coordinator position, and all that in this special emergency episode, which, of course, is brought to you by Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS. Get 50 instantly when you play 5. That's code CLNS. On Prize Picks, get 50 instantly when you play 5. Prize Picks, run your game, and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And now it's time to talk about McDaniels. We saw this coming, but your immediate reaction to the news, Greg, or how it's maybe evolved over time. We've known this is headed in this direction now that it's here. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought, once we found out that Mayo was fired, even before that, I mean, when Vrabel was sort of brought up, him and McDaniels were linked in a lot of reports. I certainly mentioned them. That was certainly a possibility. I would say around the time of Vrabel's hire, around the time of his press conference, I would say that McDaniels being his offensive coordinator wasn't on the front burner. But I don't know what to make of that. I think it was just a case of, I think Vrabel wanted to explore some options. I mean, generally I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, given that, Vrabel in his first go around as a head coach, he went straight to Sean McVay's tree with Matt LaFleur, and then Arthur Smith ran the same sort of thing. The first mentions of offensive coaching hires or interviews, whether it was Thomas Brown or Marcus Brady or Gary Udinsky from the Vikings. There was some mention of some Rams guys like Dave Ragone, possibly Mike LaFleur. All of those come from the McVay Shanahan tree, and it seemed like that's what Vrabel wants, possibly because he thinks that scheme's really difficult to defend compared to what the Patriots did. I was always hoping that McDaniels would get a legitimate chance, and I'm happy they did, because I think this hire by Mike Vrabel is the best path forward for the Patriots. I think it's I don't want to use any of the cliches like home runs and stuff like that, but I think it's a great way, and it's a great way for this franchise to go. It's a great way for Vrabel to go, because really, when it boils down to it, John, this is a chance for the Patriots, between the head coach, the quarterback, and the offensive coordinator, to be together. We're talking for, a decade plus. Because, look, Josh McDaniels is still only 48. I think the world of him as a coach. I think he got a raw deal with the Raiders. If he just would have gotten a quarterback, it made that more of a priority quicker. Maybe he's still there and being a good head coach, but he could still get an opportunity to be a head coach again. But
don't say that.
I mean, it's going to take some time. I mean, I
can't do that again.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be probably some time if that ever happens again. So to me, I know there's a lot of people out there who wanted the flashy new thing, the young guy with the tight pants and the slick hair and all that stuff. And I get it. And
especially tight pants. Yeah.
Yes. But that's short-lived, John. And we saw this in Vrabel's first go around with the Titans. I mean, he went from Matt LaFleur. He only had Matt LaFleur for a year. Yep. Then Arthur Smith he had for 2 years. And he goes to Atlanta, and then all of a sudden he runs out of people that are really good at that job, promoting from within. And Todd Downing, 2 years, not good, fired. Tim Kelly, not good. And that ended up costing Vrabel his job. It's not that all this dissimilar from, Bill Belichick towards the end here when he finally ran out of people after McDaniels went to the Raiders. We all know about Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. He brings Bill O'Brien back, but he mismatches them with an offensive line coach, which he didn't know, which was a recipe for disaster. And so, now, provided they allow Josh McDaniels to go out and hire guys that he likes that can run his system, I think it's a tremendous place, let alone his unquestioned resume at developing quarterbacks. Like, I don't think there are many better in this league at developing quarterbacks. And so I think it's a great day for the Patriots. I think it sets up the franchise for long-term success. And I think, to me, I think Vrabel learned from his first go around and said, I tried to do it this way, but it ended up costing me. Yeah. Maybe McDaniels doesn't have the ceiling of some other guys, but his floor is really high, and I get the years. And that's the most important thing with Drake Maye. You didn't need to – I mean, can you imagine they bring in Udinsky? He lights the world on fire, and then like LaFleur, he's gone after a year. Like that would be 3 coordinators in 3 years for Drake Maye, and that's just not setting him up for success.
Yeah, that was an area, again, this is one of those things that Bill had right in terms of his approach. But you're right. At a certain point in time, you run out of there's no bullets left in the chamber, and we saw that's what happened there. But that was his thinking in many of those cases when he was trying to promote from within and just keep it inside the family. Is I don't want that guy with the tight pants to leave in 2 years, and that might happen. And that's exactly what happens as soon as you get some. And chances are a hot new young OC coming in here with the Patriots and Drake Maye, and hopefully an upward trajectory. They'll start looking good again, and people are going to want a piece of that magic, and that guy's going to get hired. And you're right. You start all over again. And McDaniels, maybe he does get another shot, but realistically, this is it. He's here and he likes it here and he wants to be in New England. Right. And this is, he's got roots. This makes a lot of sense for that, for that purpose. But how else does it make sense? Like, you talked about Drake Maye and McDaniels being great at developing quarterbacks. Kendrick Bourne, we talked about a little bit off air, immediately reacted to who had a career year under McDaniels in his year here. Jones looked like a serviceable NFL quarterback under Josh McDaniels. He's a bit of a kingmaker when it comes to that kind of stuff, is trying to extract and get the most out of players. So that's something you need, particularly on this team where you need to get more. I don't know if you could have gotten less from the collective than you did last year, even though it was maybe a bottom 5 unit talent-wise in terms of weapons. I don't know that you could have possibly gotten less out of them. Even if you bring that back with some enhancements, chances are Josh is going to get something out of them.
Yeah, and I mean,
DeMario, all of those things. I think he could do. I think he'd do great things with DeMario Douglas and be really creative in how he uses him, the way he used some of those other guys operating through the slot. I think there's a lot of possibilities. Plus, again, who knows what you get through the draft or T. Higgins or whatnot.
Yeah, and also don't discount that Josh has, from what I understand, he has spent this year sort of away from coaching, so to speak, like consulting with other NFL teams, going to colleges, visiting other NFL teams, like talking schemes. So, marrying maybe some of the college stuff with what he likes to do. But I mean, you look at what he did. I mean, Matt Castle went from a guy who didn't play in college to winning, I think it was 11 games substituting.
11 and 5.
For Tom Brady. Jimmy Garoppolo went from a guy who he was sort of like he was really underdeveloped when they drafted him. And, to the point where that guy went to the Super Bowl twice with the San Francisco 49ers, thanks to the base that Josh McDaniels gave him. Jacoby Brissett won games as a rookie, running at times, beat an undefeated Houston Texans team. Cam Newton was basically done when they got him, and McDaniels was able to incorporate his legs to at least make the Patriots competitive that year, probably more so than they should have been. Of course, Mac Jones. The thing about Kendrick Bourne, I think it's a great example, John, of where I think Josh McDaniels is really good. And it also goes to, Drake Maye. Kendrick Bourne, from what I understand, when he got here with the Patriots, they realized very quickly that they needed to support him a lot as a player for him to be successful in this offense. I think someone told me once that he was a visual learner, so the coaches would go out there and like really work with him. There was a lot of hand holding from Monday to Saturday to get him to play well on Sundays. And you could see, like, from his reaction already on Twitter and on Instagram, like, he's all excited that Josh McDaniels is back. And he's great. McDaniels is great at putting guys in position to succeed, something that I think this last coaching staff was not good at. I mean, they might have done well with Drake Maye, but like, if the offensive line can't block X, Y, and Z, Josh McDaniels is not going to call those plays. He's going to double down on protection. He's going to make it a priority that, like, Drake Maye's not getting hit in this game. I don't care how many we have to keep in. He's going to do all those things.
The Cam Newton is a perfect example. Do you think it's in Josh McDaniels' DNA to be a bully ball sort of OC? It's like, no, right. There's nothing else. This guy can't throw the ball. Like, what else are we going to do? And that's what you had to do.
Yeah, and Josh has the ability. We've seen him in the iterations of this Patriots offense from 2007 to remember how they won their last championship in 2018.
Yeah,
Brady was struggling. The passing game was struggling.
Power running game.
Guess what? Yeah. They went to a power running game, and I think Vrabel told one of the video TV stations or whatever, after his press conference, that the fullback was coming back. I mean, there's nobody more of an expert at the fullback game and incorporating that with James Devlin and other people than Josh McDaniels. So whatever the Patriots end up with at the end of the day, whether it's T. Higgins or in the draft or how they draft offensive linemen, there's very few that are better at taking what is on their plate as far as, to cook the dinner and utilizing it correctly than Josh McDaniels.
So are you saying that the fullback is coming back?
I think Vrabel said that, but yeah, I think the fullback is coming back. I think they want the ability to, when they have to be physically imposing, and I think it'll be great for Ramondre Stevenson in the new scheme. I mean, I think it's going to be great for a lot of people. But whatever the Patriots, whatever they have at their disposal, maybe we'll. And here's another thing, and I left this out of my column that I wrote for BSJ. When towards the latter stages, when Bill Belichick was here, Bill would ask the coaches, like, all right, what do you want? Or, if you could have your druthers in terms of the draft and free agency, like what you want. Bill always prioritized defense over, what they wanted on offense. So hopefully McDaniels has, like, Vrabel uses him as an assistant head coach type, where they really incorporate that and give Josh what he needs. And I think, that could improve sort of what we saw towards the latter years with Bill Belichick here.
Yeah, more on the McDaniels hire, the imminent hire here coming up momentarily. But first, we're going to take a quick pause and hear from Greg talking about one of our sponsors, Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. It's playoff time. It's now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash and watch the playoffs. Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
All right, welcome back, Greg. How does this play for Drake Maye? Is this a good thing for him? If you're Maye right now, are you psyched to have Josh McDaniels here? Again, he had some success with Alex Van Pelt, at least in terms of his development, and now you got a new guy coming in the door. Is this nothing positive here, or can you see potentially any bumps in the road for Maye?
Yeah, I don't see any bumps at all. I mean, I think it's only upside for Drake in terms of the way Josh teaches quarterbacks, but also more importantly, provided Drake Maye is as smart as he appeared to be this season, when we saw him and how quickly he progressed. Being in the McDaniels offense is eventually, and Josh is great at this, and he was on Julian Edelman's podcast, Games with Names with Games, whatever. Talking about developing a young quarterback and how he did it, and he's big on the bucket, about they're going to figure out what he can and can't do, and they're going to stay in the bucket. Then they're going to slowly expand the bucket in terms of what they asked them to do. They did this with Mac Jones, and I think eventually, and it might be very soon, given how smart Drake appeared, but the ability, McDaniels is great at giving the quarterback a lot of tools in terms of changing things at the line, changing protections, knowing where things are going to come from, having answers, which sometimes the Patriots didn't have answers to last year. That was a big problem that we heard later in the season, where other teams knew, if they do this sort of pressure, the Patriots don't have a ready answer for it. Josh McDaniels in the Patriots offense will have answers for everything. It's just a question of how quickly do you get there with Drake Maye. I remember Mac Jones's first start against the Dolphins. Brian Flores and Josh Boyer threw the kitchen sink at Drake Maye, and they had answers to it. Mac knew exactly what he was going to see, and that was his very first game. And I think the longer Drake is in this, especially if they compare him with, David Andrews getting back to the Patriots scheme, I think everything's at his disposal. Josh will not be afraid to use his legs. He did it with Cam. He wanted Lamar Jackson when Belichick decided not to draft him. I think he's always wanted to see an athletic quarterback in his system, and it might unlock some more things.
Yeah.
And so I think Drake should be beyond excited about that. I mean, and why would you look at his resume plus Tom Brady? I mean, if you're Drake Maye, how aren't you excited about this?
And you wrote about it over at BSJ, that McDaniels was kind of on board with the idea of bringing Lamar Jackson in here, right? And so that having that athletic quarterback that you can do so much with, and it's amazing when you're watching, the playoffs this weekend with all of those, and particularly the game, between the Bills and the Ravens. It's a cheat code if you're using it correctly. It's not only using it as a weapon with design runs, but just the ability to extend the play. And then how many third downs can you convert with a quarterback who can get out there and use his legs, and just kind of unlocking and unleashing that? It's something they were obviously reluctant to do, but you have to imagine that McDaniels is going to know this, tap into it. Do you see him running him out there on design runs, or just saying, hey, if you see it, you can go for it? But is that going to be a thing that they incorporate into the offense?
I think for sure in certain situations, especially red zone, goal line. Yeah, I think for sure.
Things,
I mean, you can even if you remember the Texans game when Jacoby Brissett started, I think Jacoby Brissett had like a 40-yard touchdown run after they kept things really buttoned up. They were running outside zone, and then all of a sudden he went naked, bootleg, and he was all by himself and ran for a touchdown or a very long run. I forget exactly what it was. But yeah, and you also point out, Brian Daboll, who came from the same system, and what he did with Josh Allen. Josh is a little bit different beast. He's bigger and thicker than Drake, but yeah, I think he's gonna use everything at his disposal, and they're gonna get back to, there's no talking about next year. There's no talking about later on in the season.
Yeah,
whatever
let's win football
they
games.
need to do to win that game that week, they are going to do every single week.
Yeah. Now, we know what McDaniels has done. Is there any, and again, you said he spent the year kind of away. He did the college tour, maybe picking up some stuff, learning some things, talking to other people in his year away after being let go as the Raiders head coach. Is there any downside? Is there any concern that, like, and he's only 48, as you said, but is there any concern that, like, well, he was cutting edge, innovative sort of offensive mind back in his heyday, back in his day. But, the way things have evolved, and with the Ben Johnsons and the McVays and the Shanahans and all of those things, he's actually kind of an old school guy. Speak to that. I'm not going to say a knock on it, but there's some people wondering, like, is he like the old, is this the old shit? Like, I wanted some of that new stuff that everybody else is tapping into.
I mean, it's hard for me to say, outside of like, we'll see. But, I do think that he's spent a lot of time studying things, and really a lot of that stuff gets overblown. I mean, I can tell you that, Ben Johnson borrowed a lot of stuff from the Patriots. How they used the sixth offensive lineman stuff. That was McDaniels and those guys.
Sure.
Incorporated the tight end. There were other things that Ben Johnson incorporated from the Patriots, and so I'll just put it this way: the only thing that McDaniels is going to be limited by is the talent around him. I mean, even in 2021 when they were sixth in points, like they weren't exactly like the greatest show on turf. I mean, from a rookie quarterback. They had a young, I think, Brandon Bolden, I think, was like third on the team, third or fourth in receptions. You had a bunch of new guys where there's, Jacoby Myers was like their number one receiver. I mean, I love Jacoby and all, but, Hunter Henry was new. Kendrick Bourne was new. Nelson Aguilar was new. Jonnu Smith was new. I think the only thing that confines Josh McDaniels is the talent at his disposal. And I think we can all agree that for a long time there, even towards the latter stages with Brady and he's throwing his helmet and stuff like that, it got pretty limited. So give him some toys. He's gonna use them.
Yeah. Is there another name outside of McDaniels you would have thought maybe, like, I could see this too, or this could work?
Well, certainly anybody from McVay's,
like a Kaylee
tree. I don't know, but I mean, all those guys, and I said this all along, like I don't want
cheap knockoffs.
I want somebody who has a basis in teaching the quarterback. I mean, like people are bringing out Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly's not a quarterback's coach. He's never been a quarterback's coach.
How did that come up? And that was hot for like 12 hours.
I think it was because Vrabel tried to hire Ryan Day when he went to Tennessee, and Ryan Day is sort of a Chip Kelly disciple, same sort of road they traveled, UNH and all that stuff. But, probably something like Dave Ragone, the Rams QB's coach, seemed like he was going to be like the next guy. He would have been like the Matt LaFleur hire. So that probably would have made, a lot of sense to me, but he had never coordinated before. He'd never called his own play. So to me, I was always hoping that it was going to be McDaniels because I just think this is the best route for this organization right now.
All right, quick pause. We're going to hear from another one of our sponsors, Game Time.
You got to be at the games to get the full experience. Everybody knows this, whether it's locally, the Celtics, Bruins, Red Sox will be coming up, I think, at some point. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I love the all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. That's a must for me. All you have to do is either download the Game Time app or go to gametime.co and just put in like TD Garden. You can see what's coming up, including the Bean Pot. I think, the Four Nations hockey tournament, which is going to be in place of the All-Star team, All-Star game. That's going to be at TD Garden between Montreal and TD Garden. I've been interested in that. I'm looking at tickets on there. Get over to Game Time app and create an account. Use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
All right, welcome back, Greg. One thing I wanted to ask you, Now, the McDaniels thing, as you said earlier in the show, was hinted, rumored, kind of almost assumed that when Vrabel came in that would happen. And again, look, head coaches bring in people they are comfortable with. Oftentimes, they've worked with in the past. They have a familiarity with. You mentioned the continuity that could come out of this with them, being here, foundational pieces, with Drake Maye for several years. But once again, it seems like the Patriots hired someone that was basically preordained without going through. I don't know whether you think it was a legitimate OC search or kind of a cursory, once around, let's talk to some people, but I'm 99% settled on this guy. Is there any downside to doing this, to just being zeroed in, focused on, this is my guy, I'd have to be blown away to go in another direction and not have an open mind to other possibilities? I don't even know if you view it that way. Maybe you don't. Maybe you think they went through the process.
I could tell you in the wake of, Vrabel's press conference and stuff like that, like I did not think that Josh McDaniels was a favorite for this job.
You did not?
I did not. I thought that Vrabel was looking in other directions. I mean, I could tell you for a fact, like this wasn't like prearranged before Mike Vrabel took the job. That's not even close to true. And if people say that, it's not true. I think this is something I think Mike was systematic in what he wanted to do. I think he did want to entertain other possibilities. And, I'm sure the other question that you'll ask me and what people are curious about, they're going to be like, well, where's ownership on this? And
that was my next question.
Yeah, it's just an ownership.
I don't believe it. I don't believe they're bringing in a Vrabel here with the idea that, and Robin Glazer gets moved, resigns, and all of the talk is about how Vrabel's going to have final say, and then shove an OC down his throat. That does not seem like that would be the first thing that they would do to him.
Yeah, I mean, this second time around, Mike Vrabel is not going to say okay, Robert and Jonathan, I'll hire whoever you want at offensive coordinator. That's just not happening. I mean, I'm sure sports talk radio is going to go crazy with this.
Of
and
course,
they're going to be like,
seems ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Crafts guy. And they're going to bring up how Josh is still getting paid from the Raiders and he doesn't have any offset. I'm sure Josh McDaniels is going to be getting paid plenty, by the Patriots, or, maybe not, but that might be Josh McDaniels, at least for a couple years. That just might be Josh McDaniels wanting to stick it to Mark Davis, but there's no offset. So if from what Felger has said, I don't know that to be true, that there's no offset. So, it used to be if there was an offset, whatever the Patriots were paying him, then the Raiders would have to pay the balance. With no offset, the Raiders still have to pay their $10 million a year, and then Josh gets whatever he gets from the Patriots on top of that. So it frees them up to take, $4 million a year, $5 million a year. And I don't think the Crafts had any influence on this. They love Josh. I know they do. But I don't think they had any undue influence on this. And I don't expect this to be an overly cheap hire like everybody's going to say. I mean, basically, people need to stop the crap and just realize that Josh McDaniels is damn good at what he does. You have a rookie quarterback. There's nobody better that you can put in him into Josh McDaniels' hands. There's nothing you could do better for him. So just cut the crap and go talk about the Celtics and a mutiny on the Celtics.
There might be.
Yeah,
that's what the Garden Report is for. So of all the things you mentioned, the things that I like it for a million different reasons. The thing you mentioned, which I don't believe McDaniels is going anywhere, and you might have set yourself up with, head coach, OC, quarterback for the next 10 plus years, which is great. The number 2 is the quarterback development. Number 3 is getting the most out of players and not putting them in positions so that they can't excel or can't be good. If you're limited in some way, you play to their strengths and you try to not expose their weaknesses. The last one I love is basically, and what he was in the latter years with Bill, is head coach offense. And for a defensive minded coach, that's great, because if you do elevate somebody who was a quarterback's coach, an offensive line coach, or whatever that is, you're putting them in a position to do a job they've never done before for the first time, which is going to take Mike Vrabel's attention away a little bit from everything else and put it over there. This is a take it and go. Like, the offense is yours, which is great, because you're almost better off that way if you trust the person that you're bringing in implicitly to handle things here. So is this how you think it's going to go, that McDaniels, it's his show, or Vrabel going to have any input in the type of, offense that he wants to see them run, or is he just going to let Josh do what Josh does?
I think he's certainly, once they get to the season and, training camp and stuff like that, Vrabel will certainly have influence. I mean, I expect it to work a lot the same way that it did with Bill, and I think Josh and Mike are going to see the game in the same way. They're going to look at opponents and they're going to see the same strengths and weaknesses. Now, Vrabel might be a little bit better at that, but I think the way it's going to work is, come Monday night or whatever, Monday afternoon, when they start game planning for the next game, Vrabel is going to say, Josh, this is what I want you to do. This is the way we need to play to win this game. And McDaniels is going to go, okay. And he's going to go fashion a game plan that echoes what Vrabel sees. So this is going to be Vrabel's team. I think it's a great point by you. I do think him being basically head coach offense will free up Vrabel to do more, maybe some more personnel evaluations, obviously weigh in with the defensive coordinator and the defensive side, which is going to be, his baby. I don't really care who he has a defensive coordinator, because I do think Vrabel's going to have a strong hand there. But I do think it frees him up to be the overall head coach, think up shit, to trick up people, look for loopholes, all the shit that Mike Vrabel does that makes him one of the best game management coaches in the NFL. And I think Josh McDaniels frees him up a lot to do that.
If Josh McDaniels was Gerard Mayo's offensive coordinator last year, does Mayo still have a job?
Yes, absolutely. In my opinion, I think that Drake Maye would have started from day one pretty much. And I think that a lot of the issues that you saw with the offensive line would not have been as apparent as it was. McDaniels would have done everything he could to hide them. And I do think that Mayo would probably be the head coach of the Patriots still if he could have lured McDaniels, which I don't think was ever happening.
Crazy. We got a couple more odds and ends to discuss, but one more quick word from one of our sponsors over at Factor Meals.
Yes, ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives in fully prepared perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. Lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with Factor Keto meals based on a randomized, controlled clinical trial with Factor Keto. Results will vary depending on diet and exercise, with 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week. It's easy to pick menus tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto, which is the ones I eat. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. Reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that can't be beat. Nick, I just had this one the other day, the creamy pesto pork chop with spinach, cauliflower, rice, and roasted green beans. It was delicious, like I told you before. The sauce on these are like unbelievable. They're so flavorful. They're never under-seasoned, which really blows me away. Normally with these dietary things, these meals at a lot of places, they're just pretty bland, and you're like, well, man, this isn't any good. I'm telling you, these are freaking delicious. They get delivered right to your house. Great packaging, ready to go. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/Bedard50off and use code Bedard50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code Bedard50off at factormeals.com/Bedard50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box.
Okay, we're back. Any other ideas here on how the rest of this offensive staff rounds out? Do you think there's any guys that might be connected to Josh or that he might want to bring in here? Has anybody survive who's still kicking around? How do you see things rounding out if you have any thoughts on that?
Not really. I'm trying to think of like the last Patriots staff that was here who Josh brought with him to Vegas. Now I know
Can we
Mick
get Dante?
Lombardi.
Can we
No.
get Dante back? Come on.
Dante's retired and playing a lot of pickleball at the moment. Carm Brasillo was he took Carm with him to LA as his offensive line coach, but he's currently the Giants offensive line coach. Unless for some reason his contract is out, I don't see that as a possibility. Cole Popovich was a Patriots offensive line coach. He's an assistant offensive line coach somewhere now, so he could be available. Mick Lombardi is sort of a lower assistant coach on the Rams. Jerry Shaplinsky's also there. He helped with the quarterbacks at one time under McDaniels. I would love to see Mick Lombardi back as the wide receivers coach. We'll have to see. But it's important. The most important thing is that Vrabel allows, unlike Bill and with Billy O'Brien, that Vrabel allows Josh McDaniels to say, who do you want? And go get those guys so that everybody can be on the same page. There's alignment in the building. You don't have to teach the coaches and the players at the same time. That would be a great thing for the Patriots.
All right. As far as the defensive coordinator goes, still to be determined, but it does feel like a favorite has emerged here with the Lions. Terrell Williams. Sorry. Lions Terrell Williams right now, defensive line coach, also run game coordinator, and eligible to interview in person. Obviously, now that Detroit is gone, interesting there that's and Vrabel has a connection there as well. And one thing that you might be up against here is you could be against the clock with someone like this if that's who you wanted to hire, because if Aaron Glenn gets hired as an offensive coach somewhere, you could see Williams get elevated quickly to defensive coordinator, which would take him off the table. So this is something that if it happens, it could happen quickly for a couple of reasons. But I don't know what you know about him or if you have any thoughts there or any other candidates that you think are interesting. But again, it feels like the momentum is moving in that direction where he's emerged as a favorite.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, like I'm not really, I wouldn't say that, like even say Shane Bowen, who is Vrabel's last defensive coordinator with the Titans, and now the Giants defensive coordinator. I wouldn't say that anybody thinks he's a defensive mastermind or anything like that. I'm really not concerned about who they get. Terrell Williams seems to be, he has a lot of respect, really smart. Did a good job with the guys with the Lions. I thought I saw a report that if Aaron Glenn goes, they're talking about I can't find the name right now, but there's a former linebacker, like a picture him as a player, but not as a coach, who is favored to be the defensive coordinator should he be hired. That would free up Terrell Jennings. Another name, a guy who was interviewed, Ryan Crow from the Dolphins. Outside linebackers coach there was Vrabel's offensive line outside linebackers coach. People think a lot of him. We'll have to see what happens. A lot of it, a lot of these interviews, those guys could be coming on at different positions only if their contracts are expired. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. But the bottom line is, it's Mike Vrabel. He knows what the hell he's doing on defense. I don't really care who they hire as defensive coordinator. The OC, the special teams, the offensive line, those things were real blind spots for Vrabel in Tennessee. And I think he's, promoting Jeremy Springer, Tom Quinn, or keeping them on, along with getting McDaniels, now get the offensive line coach. I think they're largely all set.
And lastly, this is something you had wanted to talk about in your earlier podcast that you did with Nick, which may or may not see the light of day. Didn't get around to it, so I wanted to circle back and get your thoughts. We have a Final Four in the NFL, and I think the most surprising team for everyone is the Washington Commanders, quarterbacked, of course, by, the guy who went before Drake Maye. And so everyone's looking over there and thinking, well, geez, how did they do that? And is Jaden better? And, can the Patriots get there that quickly? Because again, Washington is neck and neck, picking one spot ahead of them a year ago, and they're in the conference championship just like that, with what might arguably be the greatest season by a rookie quarterback ever. And here you are with the Patriots situation, wondering how far are they from a turnaround like that?
I don't think they're very far at all. But I mean, the Commanders got really lucky. I mean,
and they might not be as good as all that either. Yeah.
Right. I mean, they got really lucky. I mean, they basically like there's two ways to do a rebuild. And, Elliott Wolf came from, sort of the Packers way, how they did it with the Browns under John Dorsey, where they did the, let's accumulate a bunch of draft picks. Let's build through the draft. Let's do this slowly. Where, Washington under Adam Peters, he decided to do, we're going to do we're going to do both. And, that's great. I mean, if it works, it's great, like it has this year, but it doesn't work very often. That you go out and you sign like Wiley, Eckler, Ertz, Allegretti, Wagner, Louvu, Chin, Fowler. You sign all those guys. Like a lot of those times, those guys are older. They break down. They're not any good. Now your depth gets. They got so lucky. Those guys stayed healthy all year. I mean, what's his name? Zach Ertz. He hadn't played a full season in like 5 years, and he played all 17 games this year. Austin Eckler was hurt for a time this year, but he came back in the most important games. I also think that a big factor was Cliff Kingsbury, and this is where Josh McDaniels comes in. Cliff Kingsbury was able to scheme around their average offensive line. Their offensive line isn't very good. They don't run the ball very well. They need a mobile quarterback to make the offensive line look better. And also a lot of scheme, with the RPO and things like that. They were able to scheme around the offensive line because of Cliff Kingsbury. So, while, it's great that it worked for Washington. I mean, the Patriots can try that, but you also run the risk of it doesn't work. It blows up. People get hurt. You get old. You get caught in between. They got lucky this year. That's good for them. But that's not the way it always works. I mean, you look at it, only 5 teams have gone from a bottom 2 record in the league to the conference championship game. The 2019 49ers, that was only because it was Shanahan's 3rd year and all the quarterbacks got hurt. They had to play like Nicky Mullins and, because Garoppolo got hurt. Peyton and Breeze, that was unusual. The Jaguars, it was their 2nd year as an expansion team. And the Bengals in 1988 with Sam Weish and Boomer Esiason, that was like their 4th year together. So it wasn't the same sort of situation. This is, if people need to not make the mistake of, this is an anomaly. What has happened to Washington this year? They struck lightning, and it's great, but this is the way it normally goes. And so you can't just say, because they did this, you can do this, and you're going to get the same results. But I do think with Vrabel, McDaniels, Ryan Cowden in here, all these guys are going to have opinions on Raiders who are free agents, Titans who are free agents. Vrabel was just with the Browns. They're free agents. Cowden was with the Giants and the Titans before that, and Carolina. Pat Stewart was in Carolina. You have all these guys now, as opposed to last year's staff, who didn't have any background with guys on the market. Now you're going to have guys similar to Washington, like Dan Quinn brought in a lot of his guys, like Bobby Wagner and Louvu, where they knew those guys. And so now with this coaching staff, as opposed to last year, you have that opportunity. So I do think they're going to strike that balance. And whether it works or not is largely going to be dependent on how healthy those guys stay.
That is interesting too, because I think that you hear Patriots fans say all along, like, look at the Patriots offseason and look at what Washington did. And you're right. The reality is a lot of those were kind of Band-Aid signings. It wasn't that splashy where they hit home runs left and right. There was a bit of good fortune that came into play there that turned them around. But yeah, it does seem almost impossible that they were able to do what they did given where they were last year.
And John, I didn't make this point on Felger and Maz, but you know who also tried to do the same thing last year and it failed? The Tennessee Titans. Yeah. They went out there, they signed Calvin Ridley, they signed Tony Pollard, They signed Lloyd Cushenberry at center. They signed Sebastian Joseph Day at defensive tackle,
Right.
Westbrook Ikini at wide receiver. They signed all these guys, Kenneth Murray at linebacker. And guess what? It didn't work. And they were basically had the same record as you.
Yeah. Quarterback matters.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. As we said, Greg and Nick will be back later in the week, but this was, as we said, an emergency Greg Bedard Patriots podcast. Josh McDaniels hired his third stint as OC for the New England Patriots. Of course, came on 2001 as an assistant, worked his way all the way up to OC and QB's coach, left Denver head coach, came back in 2012, was the Patriots offensive coordinator up until he was hired by the Raiders as their head coach. That lasted a year and change. And Josh has kind of been sitting on the bench waiting for his next opportunity. And what do you know? It's back here with New England Patriots for his third stint as offensive coordinator. Much more from Greg. If you want to read a deep dive analysis on the hire, make sure you go to Boston Sports Journal. If you are not a subscriber, you should. It's $50 a year for the best sports coverage in town. Go check that out. Also, Mike Giardi all over the Patriots beat, covering a lot of different things, including some insight on potential defensive coordinator hire. So check that out. As we said, Nick and Greg are back with another episode later this week. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Please hit that subscribe button and leave a review if you could. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel for all of your Greg Bedard Patriots podcast content. Take care.